Have you ever wondered, what kind of god could both bring plague and heal it? Who could slay with silent arrows and then revive a heart through music? That is Apollo, the far-shooting god, the bringer of light and the revealer of shadows. But before he became the god of light, before he held the lyre or the silver bow, Apollo was just a child hunted before he was even born. Let's go back to the very beginning. Zeus, the mighty king of Olympus, had once again fallen in love, this time with Leto, a gentle and radiant titaness. But Hera, Zeus's wife and queen of the gods, was not about to let this betrayal go unpunished, so she cursed Leto. "You will wander the world with my curse," she declared, "and no land under the sun shall give you shelter to bear your child." And so, Leto wandered. Mountains turned her away, cities closed their gates, islands remained silent. Everywhere she went, doors closed. Can you imagine? A divine mother, pregnant with twins, pursued endlessly across the earth, scorned not by mortals, but by the earth itself? But just when hope seemed lost, one island, a floating mass of rock in the sea, answered her plea. It was called Delos. It had no fixed place in the world, no roots, no allegiance, so it feared no curse. Delos said to Leto, "I may be small, I may be drifting, but I will shelter you." And so, under the olive branches with the nymphs singing softly, Leto gave birth to Artemis, the huntress, first of the twins. But the labor wasn't over. For 9 days and nights, Leto struggled until finally Apollo was born. The moment Apollo touched the light, all of Delos trembled. Golden light washed over the island. Swans flew in circles above, and the air itself held its breath. Even in infancy, Apollo wasn't ordinary. He didn't cry, he shone. The stories say that the moment he opened his eyes, the world stilled, the sun itself seemed brighter, and the fates whispered, "This one is not like the others." Apollo's birth isn't just a tale of divine heritage, it's a myth steeped in symbolism. Think about it. Born from a mother exiled on an island that didn't even belong to the world, Apollo arrived as light born from darkness, as hope rising from rejection. He is the god who was not meant to be, and yet the world could not deny his coming. That's why he's not just a sun god. He is the light that breaks through when all seems lost. And what was the first thing this child god heard? Music. As he lay in his swaddling clothes, Hermes, his half-brother, gifted him the lyre. The muses hummed lullabies. Even Gaia, the earth herself, let flowers bloom on Delos in welcome. From his first breath, Apollo was surrounded not by war, but by art, sound, and silence. His destiny was already whispering to him. So remember this. Apollo, the god of light, prophecy, and healing, was once an unborn child, chased across a hostile world, born on a drifting island that dared to defy fate. And from that island came a god who would... Imagine this. A newborn child causes the entire world to pause. Light floods the skies, sacred swans circle the heavens, and a drifting island finally anchors, held still by a divine presence. That child is Apollo, but how does an infant become the very embodiment of light, music, and prophecy? From the moment Apollo took his first breath, nature bent in awe. The floating island of Delos, once adrift in the vast Aegean, halted its wanderings to cradle him. 7 days of sacred swans circled above, a celestial celebration for a god not born of chance but of cosmic intention. Even the Olympians recognized this child was unlike any other, not merely a son of Zeus and Leto, but the dawn of a new era, an age of light, harmony, and vision. Unlike Ares, who craved battle, or Hermes, the clever trickster, Apollo matured in stillness. His hands didn't grasp a sword, but a lyre, gifted by Hermes himself in an unspoken truce of divine siblings. Music became his breath, his voice, before he spoke. But Apollo's gifts went beyond melody. He seemed to know things, like the wind's whispered secrets only he could hear. As he grew, Apollo's beauty and talents were unmatched. But admiration did not satisfy him. He asked, "Why was I born? Not to perform, not to bask in worship, but to understand, to grasp destiny itself." And he heard whispers of a sacred place, a cave deep within the earth, guarded by a monstrous serpent named Python, the creature of Gaia, mother of all. And within that cave, the seat of divine prophecy, a power as old as the earth herself. As he grew, Apollo's beauty and talents were unmatched, but admiration did not satisfy him. He asked, "Why was I born? Not to perform, not to bask in worship, but to understand, to grasp destiny itself." Then he heard whispers of a sacred place, a cave deep within the earth, guarded by a monstrous serpent named Python, the creature of Gaia, mother of all. And within that cave, the seat of divine prophecy, a power as old as the earth herself. From Python's ashes, Apollo established his sanctuary, Delphi, a temple not of blood and fire, but of knowledge and riddles. Yet Apollo didn't speak his own prophecies. He chose mortals, the Pythia, to be his voice, channeling his truth in cryptic, poetic fragments. His wisdom wasn't given freely. It had to be earned, interpreted, lived. Apollo, once just a radiant child, now stood as the torchbearer of light and foresight. He did not rely on brute strength, but on insight. His Delphi became the spiritual navel of the ancient world, a place where kings, warriors, and commoners alike came to face their fate. He was not just a god of sunlight. He became the sunlight of the soul, illumination from within. And what about you? Are you, too, searching for your own Delphi, a place where purpose meets intuition? Remember, light isn't always blinding. Sometimes it hums quietly, like the strings of a lyre echoing through the dark. What happens when the god of light falls into the shadow of his own desire? Apollo, radiant and pure, thought he understood love until he tasted the bitterness of obsession, jealousy, and loss. This is the tale of a love so intense, it left behind a flower of grief. One day, Apollo mocked Eros, the tiny god of love. "What use is your little bow, child?" he sneered. "Leave weapons to real gods." But Eros, stung by pride, didn't reply. He simply smiled and took aim. 2 arrows were fired that day, one golden, piercing Apollo's heart, igniting an uncontrollable passion, one leaden, striking the nymph Daphne, cursing her to loathe all love. And so began a one-sided chase, a divine infatuation doomed from the first heartbeat. Daphne, daughter of the river god Peneus, had sworn to remain untouched, a servant of Artemis. She wanted freedom, woods, rivers, wind, not marriage. But Apollo, inflamed by Eros' curse, pursued her across hills and valleys, not with malice, but with desperate longing. "Wait," he cried, "I'm no brute. I'll give you songs, immortality, the stars." But love, when poisoned by force, becomes fear. Daphne ran faster, her breath ragged, her prayers frantic. Finally, exhausted and cornered, Daphne cried out to her father, "Father, change me, destroy my beauty if you must, but save me from this." And in an instant her legs rooted into soil, her arms branched to the sky. Apollo reached her, only to find bark where skin had been, leaves where hair once flowed. Daphne had become a laurel tree. The god of light, lover of beauty, held only silence in his arms. Apollo, weeping, whispered to the tree, "If I cannot have you as my love, I will honor you forever." He took her leaves, wove them into a crown, and declared the laurel sacred. "Victors, poets, kings, none shall wear a crown but yours." And so, in every Olympic victory, in every Roman emperor's triumph, the pain of one god's lost love lives on in the form of a wreath. But why does the god of clarity and wisdom falter so deeply in matters of the heart? Some myths suggest it's because Apollo doesn't truly love. He desires control. He wants to possess, not partner. And love, in the mortal world, must be free. His other lovers, Hyacinthus, Coronis, Cassandra, all end in pain, betrayal, or death. Is it a flaw in Apollo, or is it a message? That even divine light casts shadows when wielded selfishly. Perhaps Apollo's tragedy isn't just that he loses love, it's that he never learns how to love. His heart burns too brightly, scorching those he touches. And yet we still crown our heroes with laurel. Maybe it's our way of saying, greatness often walks hand in hand with sorrow. What do you think? What is the cost of being the god of music? Of shaping beauty so perfect that even tragedy must be set to rhythm? In Apollo's golden hands, music was not mere entertainment. It was truth. His lyre, a gift from Hermes, sang the harmonies of the cosmos. It soothed beasts, stilled oceans, and healed hearts. But for Apollo, music was also a weapon and a wound. Let me tell you about Marsyas, a satyr, a half-man, half-beast, who found the aulos, a flute once discarded by Athena. When Marsyas played, the forests danced, mortals cheered, and in his pride, he made a terrible mistake. He challenged Apollo. "A contest," Marsyas declared. "Let us see who truly masters music." Apollo accepted, not with wrath, but with a cool smile. "Let the muses judge," he said. The contest began. Marsyas played wild, ecstatic notes. His flute conjured frenzy, freedom, the voice of earth itself. Then Apollo stepped forward, lyre in hand. He played not just melody, but memory, time, starlight. The muses wept. The rivers paused. And yet, the contest did not end. "Let's raise the stakes," Apollo said. "Play your instrument upside down. Sing as you play." Marsyas with his flute could not, but Apollo, god of mastery, played his lyre and sang with divine grace. The verdict was clear. And then came the punishment. You see, Apollo did not merely defeat Marsyas. He flayed him alive. Yes, the god of light became a god of cruelty. He strung the satyr's skin from a tree as a warning. The river beneath turned red and forever bore his name, the Marsyas. Why? Why would Apollo, bringer of art, do such a thing? Some say it was pride. Others say it was justice. But maybe, just maybe, Apollo couldn't bear the mirror Marsyas held up to him. A creature passionate and raw, untrained, but powerful. And in destroying him, Apollo destroyed part of himself. But pain was not only something Apollo inflicted, it was something he endured. Now listen to the wind, for it carries another tale, a tale of youth, of love, of irreversible loss. Hyacinthus, a Spartan prince, beautiful beyond words. Apollo loved him, not like a god to a mortal, but soul to soul. They hunted together, sang together, whispered secrets beneath olive trees. The world seemed lighter in Hyacinthus' presence. One day they played discus beneath the sun. Apollo threw, the disc soared. Hyacinthus ran to catch it, but the wind betrayed him. Or perhaps Zephyrus, god of the west wind, jealous of their bond, twisted its path. The discus struck Hyacinthus' skull. Blood spilled. Apollo ran to him, cradling his broken form, weeping tears not even a god could stop. "Don't go," he whispered. "Please." But it was too late. From Hyacinthus' blood, Apollo grew a flower, deep violet petals marked with the letters A-I-A-I, the cry of eternal mourning, the hyacinth. Through Marsyas we saw Apollo's pride. through Hyacinthus is grief. And in both, we glimpse something deeper, the duality of the divine. Light can blind, music can wound, love can kill. Yet through it all, Apollo's heart, godly and flawed, beats with a painful beauty that echoes across centuries. So we ask again, what is the cost of beauty? Sometimes it's everything. We often think of Apollo as the god of harmony, the bringer of light, the patron of poets and musicians. But what happens when that light burns too hot? When the sun scorches instead of warms? Beneath his golden beauty lies a fire that, once provoked, shows no mercy. And in Greek mythology, few deities are as quick to punish. Let's begin with the Trojan War, a conflict of men and kings, but also of gods. At the heart of the battle, the Greeks capture a maiden named Chryseis, daughter of a priest of Apollo. Her father pleads for her return. Agamemnon, arrogant and unmoved, refuses. Big mistake. Apollo doesn't send thunderbolts. He doesn't raise oceans. Instead, he draws his bow. For 9 days his arrows fall, silent, invisible, unstoppable. Not upon warriors, but animals, then men. Disease sweeps the camp like wildfire. Corpses pile up. Morale crumbles. When Achilles confronts Agamemnon, it's not just about honor, it's about survival. And all because Apollo was offended. This is not an isolated act. Time and again, Apollo lashes out not with chaos like Ares, but with terrifying precision. His anger is cold, just, and often poetic. Consider Niobe, queen of Thebes, proud mother of many children. Too proud. She mocks Leto, Apollo's mother. Why honor her? Niobe boasts. When I have birthed more, am I not more divine? Apollo answers with arrows. Alongside his twin, Artemis, he slaughters Niobe's sons, one by one. In some versions, all 14. In others, a single boy is spared, but not the grief. Niobe flees to Mount Sipylus, broken, wailing. There, the gods turn her into stone, but the rock still weeps. Even now, travelers say you can hear the tears. And then there is the story of King Titius. Titius dared to attack Leto. For that crime, Apollo didn't just kill him. He condemned him to eternal torment, chained in Tartarus, where 2 vultures feast endlessly on his regenerating liver. This is the paradox of Apollo. He is the god of law, of justice, but his punishments are not mild, they are absolute. Even his lovers are not safe from his wrath. Cassandra, a Trojan princess, beautiful and clever. Apollo offers her a gift, the power of prophecy, in exchange for her love. She accepts the gift, and then denies his affection. Apollo cannot revoke the power, but he can curse it. He ensures that no one will ever believe her prophecies. So when she warns of Troy's fall, of the Greeks in the wooden horse, her people laugh. That's Apollo, generous but never forgetful, loving but never merciful when scorned. And perhaps this is what makes him so haunting. He is not a god of random destruction. His rage has reason. His vengeance is targeted. And yet, that may be more terrifying. Because Apollo punishes not chaos, but hubris, the pride of mortals who dare to challenge divine order. So when you stand beneath the sun, basking in its warmth, remember, that same light can blind. That same God who sings beauty into the world can silence it with a single arrow. Apollo, so often praised as a bringer of light, music, and harmony, was not always gentle. There were moments when his divine flame erupted not in beauty, but in fury. When his arrows did not sing, they scorched. And those who dared mock the god, defy him, or harm what he loved paid a terrible price. Let us begin with the story of Niobe, Queen of Thebes, proud, powerful, mother to many. And in her pride, Niobe made the fatal mistake of mocking Leto, Apollo's mother. "Why do people worship Leto?" she sneered. "She only bore 2 children. I have many. I am the true mother, worthy of praise." Her words echoed through the temples. Apollo heard. So did Artemis. The twins descended. With bows in hand and justice in their hearts, they unleashed a storm of divine retribution. Apollo struck down Niobe's sons one by one, arrows flashing like sunbeams turned to daggers. Artemis followed, claiming the daughters. Blood ran through Thebes like a river. Only 1 or 2 children survived, depending on the version. And Niobe, she fled, broken and mad with grief, to Mount Sipylus. There, weeping endlessly, she begged for death. The gods took pity, not by ending her pain, but by transforming her into a stone, a rock that still weeps today. The weeping rock remains a monument to the danger of hubris and the rage of Apollo. But Apollo's wrath was not limited to mortals. Even gods and heroes were not safe. Consider the story of Patroclus, beloved companion of Achilles during the Trojan War. When Patroclus donned Achilles' armor and stormed the battlefield, Apollo watched from afar. Patroclus fought valiantly, but he dared approach the walls of Troy, a place protected by Apollo himself, and the god intervened, not with lightning or fire, but with a touch. 3 times Apollo struck Patroclus, weakening him. Confused, exposed, Patroclus was then killed by Hector. And though the killing blow came from the Trojan prince, the war cry behind it was Apollo's. But the most chilling tale of Apollo's vengeance, that would be the punishment of the Greek army at Aulis at the very beginning of the Trojan War. Agamemnon, the Greek commander, had offended Apollo by insulting a priest named Chrysis and refusing to return his daughter, Chryseis. In response, Apollo descended silently. No words, no warnings, only a plague. 10 days of fire and disease. Greek soldiers fell by the dozens, their cries echoing in the camp. Apollo's arrows, invisible and relentless, brought death with each sunrise. Only when Chryseis was returned and sacrifices were made did the god relent. You see, Apollo did not kill for pleasure, but he demanded respect. He was not merely a sunbeam, he was the sun itself, and to defy the sun is to invite ruin. Even the builders of Troy once learned this. According to one myth, Apollo and Poseidon, yes, the sea god, were punished by Zeus and forced to serve King Laomedon of Troy. Disguised as mortals, they built the mighty walls of the city, perfect, unbreachable, divine. But when the work was done, Laomedon refused to pay. And Apollo did not forget. He sent a plague. Poseidon sent a sea monster. Troy was punished, twice over, and the seeds of the Trojan War were planted. It is easy to imagine Apollo as the god of poets and musicians, of golden hair and peaceful songs. But in truth, he was the god of order, and those who disrupted that order, whether with arrogance, defiance, or betrayal, faced the consequences. Apollo's wrath was never chaotic like Ares, or deceptive like Hermes. It was precise, terrifyingly clean, like sunlight turned into a blade. And maybe that's what makes it so haunting, because Apollo does not rage like a storm. He burns like the sun, slow, steady, unstoppable. And when he turns his gaze toward you in fury, no shield can save you, no plea can soften him. Because when the God of light punishes, he does so with full clarity and no regret. If you could glimpse the future, would you dare to look? That is the question every mortal faced when they approached Delphi, the sacred seat of Apollo perched on the slopes of Mount Parnassus, shrouded in mists and mystery. But to understand Delphi is to understand Apollo not only as a radiant god of the lyre and light, but as the harbinger of truth, of fate, and of consequences. Long ago, after slaying the earth-born serpent Python, Apollo claimed Delphi not just as a victory site, but as a throne of knowledge. The cavern it guarded, once a primordial center of chaotic wisdom, became the birthplace of something far more structured, prophecy. And from its hollow depths, with laurel leaves burning and incense rising like prayers, a singular voice emerged, a woman, the Pythia. Chosen in trance, her body quivered with Apollo's presence. She would speak not in reasoned sentences, but in riddles, her words veiled and cryptic as though the god himself whispered through her soul. Kings, conquerors, philosophers, and paupers all stood in line, hoping for direction, validation, or simply a glimpse into tomorrow. But Apollo's gift was never certainty. It was vision, and vision, in the wrong hands or with the wrong expectations, can become a curse. Take, for example, Croesus of Lydia. Rich beyond imagination, powerful beyond borders, he stood before the Pythia and asked, "Should I go to war with Persia?" Her answer was simple, elegant, damning. "If you cross the river, a great empire will fall." Encouraged, Croesus marched to war. And indeed, an empire did fall, his. It is here that Apollo's role as a divine trickster emerges, not from cruelty, but from cosmic irony. For the god of prophecy does not lie, he simply does not explain. Delphi became not only the center of the Greek world, but of its anxieties. For centuries, it was believed that Zeus himself had released two eagles at opposite ends of the earth, and where they met, Delphi was the navel of the world. The omphalos, the stone that marked that sacred center, still rests among ruins, silent, watching. Yet Apollo's visions were not always directed outward. Sometimes they struck painfully close to home. Consider Cassandra. It is here that Apollo's role as a divine trickster emerges, not from cruelty, but from cosmic irony. For the god of prophecy does not lie, he simply does not explain. Delphi became not only the center of the Greek world, but of its anxieties. For centuries, it was believed that Zeus himself had released two eagles at opposite ends of the earth, and where they met, Delphi was the navel of the world. The omphalos, the stone that marked that sacred center, still rests among ruins, silent, watching. Yet Apollo's visions were not always directed outward. Sometimes they struck painfully close to home. Consider Cassandra, a Trojan princess, gifted with the sight by Apollo himself, perhaps in love, perhaps in admiration. But when she rejected him, he did not strip the gift away. No, he left it intact and cursed it. She would always see the truth, but no one would ever believe her. She foresaw the fall of Troy, the betrayal of the Greeks, the doom hidden inside the wooden horse. She screamed, she begged, she warned, and she was dismissed as mad. And here lies one of Apollo's deepest paradoxes. The god of clarity, cursed with the burden of obscurity. He sees what others cannot, and yet he often watches as fate unfolds in tragic silence, unable or perhaps unwilling to interfere. And that silence grew louder with time, as the old gods waned and Christianity surged across the Mediterranean. Delphi fell quiet. The oracle stopped speaking. The rituals faded. The stones, once alive with song and smoke, turned cold. But the ruins remain. To this day, visitors climb the sacred path, tracing the footsteps of emperors and seekers. They look not just for history, but for answers. And in that quiet place, standing before the hollow temple, a question lingers like smoke on the wind. Can knowing the future change the future? Apollo offers no reply, only that half smile, that knowing gaze, that sunlit shadow that never quite tells the whole story. And maybe that's the lesson. Truth is not a weapon, it's a weight. And those who bear it must also bear the silence that follows. He is the god of music, of poetry, of sunlight. But never mistake Apollo's brightness for mercy. Beneath the laurel crown and golden lyre, there simmers a fire far more ancient and dangerous. Divine wrath. And when Apollo chooses to punish, the heavens themselves tremble. His vengeance is not like Ares' raw violence, nor Zeus' thunderous dominance. No, Apollo strikes with precision, with elegance, with devastating purpose. When his bow is raised, the arrows do not miss, and they are rarely metaphorical. Consider the tale of Niobe, queen of Thebes. Proud, regal, and arrogant beyond reason, she mocked Leto, Apollo's mother, for only bearing 2 children, Apollo and Artemis, while she herself had 14. Why worship Leto, she sneered, when I am clearly the greater mother? That insult did not go unanswered. With chilling coordination, Apollo and Artemis descended upon her family. One by one, they slaughtered Niobe's children. Boys fell to Apollo's arrows, girls to Artemis's silent shafts. The queen, once so proud, fled to Mount Sipylus and wept until she turned to stone. Even now, the ancients believe her petrified form still cries, a waterfall of eternal regret. But Apollo's fury was not reserved only for mortals. He defied the divine order when insulted or betrayed, even if that meant clashing with Zeus himself. Take the story of Asclepius, Apollo's own son with the mortal Coronis. Trained by the centaur Chiron, Asclepius became a healer so skilled he could bring a dead back to life. A miracle? Perhaps, but to the gods it was a violation of the natural law. Death must not be undone. Zeus struck Asclepius down with a thunderbolt. Apollo's response was swift and unthinkable. He killed the Cyclopes, the very beings who forged Zeus's thunderbolts. It was not just revenge, it was a message. Even the king of gods could bleed through the bonds of family. For this crime, Apollo was banished from Olympus and forced to serve as a mortal. In the halls of King Admetus, he played the humble herdsman. But even in exile, the sun god left behind strange echoes. Flocks multiplied under his touch. Music filled the fields, yet his power and pain never truly faded. And then, there is the plague. In the opening lines of Homer's Iliad, we do not see Apollo the Golden. We see Apollo the Wrathful. Agamemnon, king of the Greeks, has dishonored one of Apollo's priests. In response, the god descends. Like nightfall at noon, he moves silently among the Achaean ships. His arrows, burning with disease, rain down. First the animals, then the men. Fever spreads like wildfire. The message is clear. Give the priest his daughter back, or watch your army rot. It takes 9 days before the Greeks understand what they're dealing with. 9 days before they beg for forgiveness. 9 days before Apollo, relenting, lowers his bow. And that's perhaps the most terrifying truth of all. Apollo does not rage often, but when he does, it is not madness. It is justice, sharpened by purpose. The Greeks saw him as a divine paradox. The healer who can kill, the light who casts shadows, the god who sings and also curses. He could cleanse a city or doom it, crown a king or strip him of his future. Unlike Zeus, whose anger was political, or Poseidon, whose wrath was chaotic, Apollo's vengeance was moral. It was personal. It was beautiful. And it was terrible. Because Apollo never lashes out blindly, he watches, he waits, and when he acts, the punishment always fits the crime. So the next time we think of him, standing on mountaintops with lyre in hand, golden hair glistening in the sun, remember this: he is also the god of burning plagues, of divine silence, of inescapable justice. Apollo does not scream. He strikes. He was beautiful, so beautiful that even the gods looked twice. Apollo, radiant, poised, a golden embodiment of youth and intellect. You would think that love would come easy for such a being. But in the myths of old, the god of light cast some of the darkest shadows in matters of the heart. And perhaps no tale reveals this paradox more than the tragic love of Apollo and Daphne. It began with a boast, a single arrogant comment. Apollo, flushed with victory after slaying Python, mocked Eros, the god of desire. "What use is your tiny bow," he sneered, "next to mine? My arrows fell monsters. Yours only stir hearts." Eros responded not with words, but with 2 arrows, one tipped with gold, the other with lead. The golden one he shot into Apollo's chest, igniting an unbearable passion. The lead one struck Daphne, a river nymph and follower of Artemis, who from that moment felt a hatred toward love itself. Apollo burned with longing. He pursued Daphne across hills, through forests, through time itself. He didn't want to conquer, he wanted to be near her, to understand her. But Daphne, terrified, ran. She ran until she could run no more, and in desperation, she cried out to her father, the river god Peneus, to save her. And he did. Before Apollo could touch her, Daphne's body transformed, her legs rooted to the earth, her arms stretched skyward, turning to branches. Leaves unfurled from her fingers, bark consumed her skin. Daphne became a laurel tree. Apollo stood before her, confused, shattered. He had chased love only to witness it turn into something he could never embrace. So he declared the laurel sacred, vowing to wear its wreath on his brow forever, a symbol not of victory, but of love unfulfilled. But this was not Apollo's only heartbreak. There was Coronis, a mortal woman he adored, but she betrayed him, taking a human lover while carrying Apollo's child. From the sun, Apollo saw the truth. In his grief and fury, he sent his white raven, once a symbol of purity, to watch her. When the raven brought back news of her betrayal, Apollo cursed it, turning its feathers black. And then he struck. He killed Coronis himself. But too late, he regretted it. She had been carrying his son. With trembling hands, Apollo pulled the infant from her burning body. That child would grow up to be Asclepius, god of medicine, a healer born from betrayal, death, and divine grief. And then there was Hyacinthus, a Spartan prince, beautiful, athletic, kind. He and Apollo spent days playing games, music, and discus in sun-drenched fields. Apollo was no longer the god, he was simply a companion, perhaps even in love. But one day, the discus game turned fatal. Whether it was the jealous wind god Zephyrus, who twisted the disc in midair, or cruel fate, it struck Hyacinthus in the head. The youth died in Apollo's arms, blood soaking the grass. The god cried out, not with rage, but with despair. He could not bring him back, not even with all his power. So instead, from Hyacinthus' spilled blood, Apollo birthed a flower. The hyacinth, marked forever with the letters AI, the Greek cry of mourning. Apollo, the god of prophecy, could see the future, but not prevent his own heart from breaking. He who healed the sick could not save the ones he loved. He who chased light often found only shadow. Through these tragedies, we see that Apollo, despite his divine stature, was achingly human in love. Proud, passionate, vulnerable. And so, his romances echo through myth not as triumphs, but as elegies. In the end, Apollo reminds us of a cruel truth, that love, even when divine, does not always end in joy. Sometimes it roots into the earth, sometimes it burns in memory, and sometimes it blooms, beautiful and broken, where sorrow once lived. In a world born from chaos, where gods often acted on whims and fate bent like the wind, there was one divine force who stood for balance, for clarity, for reason. That was Apollo, not merely the god of the sun or music, but the unshakable guardian of order and prophecy. To understand this side of Apollo, we must journey not through myth, but through the minds of the ancient Greeks, because for them, Apollo wasn't just a deity to worship. He was a symbol of civilization itself. While Dionysus celebrated ecstasy and madness, Apollo upheld logic and restraint. While Ares embodied reckless violence, Apollo represented strategic clarity and foresight. He was the one who shone light not just on the world, but on the truth. His temple at Delphi wasn't just a sanctuary, it was the spiritual nucleus of the Greek world. From kings to peasants, generals to poets, all came to consult the Oracle of Delphi, Apollo's mouthpiece on earth. Her name? The Pythia. Seated atop a tripod, breathing vapors from the earth itself, she would enter a trance, and in that liminal space between mortal and divine, she would speak Apollo's riddled words, cryptic, yes, but never without meaning. These oracles shaped the course of history. Should Athens go to war? Should a child be exposed or raised? Should a city be founded? All answered not by mortal minds, but by Apollo's insight. But why would a god care about such human matters? Because Apollo, unlike many gods, believed that structure matters. He was the lawgiver, the god who detested impurity, plague, and corruption, not just physical but moral. When cities defiled nature or ignored the gods, it was Apollo who punished with plagues. But it was also Apollo who cured, if they listened. You see, he wasn't cruel, he was principled. He struck down Niobe's children for her arrogance, but left her alive to grieve. He punished the arrogant physician Tydeus for defying divine law, but then gave humanity Asclepius, god of healing. He did not punish chaos for vengeance, but to restore balance. This is why philosophers like Plato and Socrates loved Apollo, not because he gave easy answers, but because he represented the pursuit of truth. Know thyself, read the inscription at the entrance of Delphi. That wasn't just a suggestion, it was a commandment from Apollo to humankind, to seek wisdom, not pride, to ask questions, not assume, to hold yourself accountable before holding the world to judgment. Apollo also guided justice. In the Oresteia, Aeschylus's great trilogy, Apollo defends Orestes, who killed his mother Clytemnestra, not because he condoned murder, but because it was done under divine instruction to avenge a greater wrong. When the Furies demanded blood for blood, Apollo argued for reasoned judgment and brought the case to Athena. That trial became symbolically the birth of the Athenian legal system. From myth to courtrooms, Apollo's hand was everywhere. And beyond law and prophecy, he was also the guide of purification rituals. Whenever mortals committed crimes or faced inner corruption, they turned to Apollo for catharsis, not just confession, but transformation. Because in his eyes, light was not just about banishing darkness, it was about illumination within. In times of plague, his arrows were feared. In times of doubt, his voice was law. In times of confusion, his temple offered clarity. Apollo was not perfect. He loved, lost, and erred like all gods. But in a world where even immortals acted irrationally, he chose order. He chose to be a beacon, not of control, but of balance. A god who whispered truth through riddles. A judge who saw the soul before the sin. A guardian who didn't rule with fear, but with firelight. And now we arrive at the final note in this symphony of myth. A lingering chord that echoes long after the story ends. Apollo, son of Zeus, twin of Artemis, slayer of Python, lover of poetry, master of plague and prophecy. But more than any title, Apollo is a mirror. He reflects what we long to be, brilliant, wise, beautiful, and balanced. And what we fear, pride, loss, vengeance, and the cost of knowing too much. His myth doesn't end with a death because gods like Apollo don't die, they transform. His music, once played on golden lyres, now lives in every symphony and song that seeks harmony in chaos. His light, once drawn across the heavens in a chariot, now blazes in every sunrise we watch with awe and quiet hope. His oracles, once whispered through Pythia's breath, now echo in every question we ask ourselves at the crossroads of life. What would Apollo say today? In a world overwhelmed by noise, would he play his lyre to bring silence? In a time of confusion and lies, would he offer truth in riddles once more? In an age of war, disease, and despair, would he draw his silver bow or extend his hand? We still build temples to Apollo, though now they're called libraries, hospitals, universities, courts of justice, places where light meets thought, where healing meets reason. And the flame he carried, it burns now in our pursuit of knowledge, in every artist who seeks beauty, in every scientist who seeks truth, in every soul who seeks to know itself. But Apollo was never perfect. He loved and lost. He punished unjustly. He was blinded by pride and wounded by grief. And that is why we remember him. Because he wasn't just a god of divine gifts. He was a god who struggled with divine responsibility. He had the power to destroy, but often chose to inspire. And isn't that what we need most today? A light that does not blind, but guides. A truth that does not punish, but purifies. A legacy not of domination, but of transcendence. So as we leave this journey through temples and tragedies, through poetry and prophecy, through sunrises and shadows, ask yourself, what light will you carry forward? Because Apollo's story is not just history, it's not just myth. It's a challenge, it's a calling, it's a question, burning as bright as ever. Can you become the light that reveals the truth without being consumed by it? Thank you for journeying with us through light and shadow, through riddles and revelations, through the immortal legend of Apollo. If today's story stirred something within you, if a part of you still lingers in Delphi's mist or hears the faint strum of a golden lyre in the distance, then don't let it end here. Because here on Decoding the Myth Olympus, we don't just tell ancient myths, we decode them. We peel back the layers of time to find what still breathes within us, the ambition of the gods, the wounds of heroes, and the truths that never grow old. So if you want more tales that challenge, awaken, and illuminate, subscribe, like, and join us as we uncover the wisdom of Olympus, one myth at a time. Until next time, seek the truth, question the divine, and never stop decoding the myth.